Okay?
So cute.
See you again tomorrow, okay? It's 4 p.m.
Okay.
It is a very good afternoon to you, Eritrea. Good afternoon to you, Senegal. Good afternoon, Zambia, Eswatini, Zimbabwe. Good afternoon to you, Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana. Good afternoon, Africa. Welcome to Africa in Business on Channel Africa. I'm Thami Ngubeni. This is where you get the African perspective. It's where we meet to look at the latest in news, sport and business. It's just gone 4 p.m. Central African time as we head over now to the news desk for the latest local, continental and international news with Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Thank you, Thami. Looking at your top stories, South Africa's ambassador to France, Nathi Mthethwa, has died in Paris, and Hamas begins a series of consultations to work out a position on U.S. President Donald Trump's peace plan. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. South Africa has confirmed the passing of ambassador to France, Nathi Mthethwa. Mthethwa was appointed in December 2023. The government of France has launched an investigation into Mthethwa's death. The spokesperson for the Minister of International Relations, Crispin Piri, says the government extends its deepest and most sincere condolences to the family of Ambassador Mthethwa and to his friends and colleagues.
The government of the Republic of South Africa announces with deep sorrow and profound regret the untimely passing of His Excellency Ambassador Nkosinathi Emmanuel Mthethwa, South Africa's ambassador to the French Republic. Ambassador Mthethwa was a distinguished servant of the nation whose career was marked by dedicated service in critical ministerial portfolios, including Minister of Police and Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture. His lifelong commitment to public duty was further exemplified by his long-standing contribution to the African National Congress through its highest decision-making structures.
South Africa's Crimes Intelligence Head, General Dumisani Khumalo, has revealed a link between Brian Mokgotsi, Vusumuzi Matlala and Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. President Cyril Ramaphosa placed Mchunu on leave of absence after the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi alleged that he was linked with organized crime syndicates in the country. Khumalo has been taking the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry through text communication retrieved from Matlala's phone following his arrest. Some of the WhatsApp messages document payments made to a third party from Matlala, facilitated by Mokgotsi. Khumalo explains.
The communication now is on Tuesday, the following day, as reflected partly on top, page 12, where Mr. Brown Mokgotsi receives the message from the number saved as for Senzo Mchunu on his phone. With the message was the arrest effected at 1919.
Hundreds of protesters returned to the streets of Madagascar's capital today. This is a day after the president dissolved his government following protests over water and power cuts. The United Nations says at least 22 people have been killed and more than 100 injured in the protests since Monday last week, with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs rejecting the casualty figures. Yesterday, President Andry Rajoelina dissolved his government and said he wanted to create room for dialogue with young people. And lastly, Palestinian sources say Hamas has begun a series of consultations within its political and military leadership to work out a position on U.S. President Donald Trump's peace plan for Gaza. The sources say the discussions could last several days due to the complexities of communications. Under the framework, there'll be an immediate end to the fighting and the release of all hostages within 3 days. Hamas would have to disarm. The Palestinian Authority in the occupied West Bank has welcomed the proposal. Leading Arab nations have urged Hamas to accept it. Qatari Minister Mohammed Al Thani.
We welcome the whole initiative, and we do believe in that with the leadership of the United States that this plan would constitute a comprehensive model for the end of war. And our main goal was always to end this war, to get aid to the people who need it in Gaza, and to start helping the people of Gaza rebuild their lives.
Recapping on your top story, South Africa has confirmed the passing of Ambassador to France, Thami Ngubeni. Ngubeni was appointed in December 2023. The government of France has launched an investigation into Ngubeni's death. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, players react to the increased prize money for this year's ICC ODI Women's Cricket World Cup, while Carlos Alcaraz earns a cool $700,000 this after winning the China Open earlier this morning. I'll have more details on these and other stories at 4:30.
From markets to innovation. From markets to innovation. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
It has gone exactly 6 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. A very good afternoon to you, Africa. It's a Tuesday afternoon as we look at the leading stories in the world of business on the African continent. We'll focus today on a decision that was made by the Construction Industry Development Board. This was just over a year ago to blacklist 40 contractors. They remain blacklisted for non-delivery as well as corruption. We'll be speaking to the CIBD today, the CEO of the Construction Industry Development Board. Also coming up, a look at the Africa Energy Summit, which is currently underway, and the new cooking mechanisms. They call it clean cooking, as well as all the developments around enabling the continent to provide resources that will enable clean cooking. What exactly is that, and what are the energy sources to achieve that? And also, is it the end of AGOA for South Africa? We'll be joined by independent consultant on agricultural value chain systems, Dr. Sunday Uwene. It's exactly 7 minutes after 4 p.m.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
Malawians go to the polls next week in a high-stakes general election where citizens will choose a new president and 229 members of parliament. And this comes 5 years after the country's 2019 election was annulled by the Constitutional Court due to widespread irregularities in a landmark decision that overturned the victory of the then-president Peter Mutharika.
I'm not saying we're a perfect government. No, nobody is. I mean, we've seen even South Africa facing challenges with the fuel that's going up and with whatever challenges. But you know what? When you are dealing with an IMF policy that says do not employ so many people because you are going to become a welfare government and all of that. And Dr. Chakwera said I've got high numbers of unemployment. As a government that is answerable to Malawians, we have found IMF policies wanting on many issues. We believe the people who pay us taxes to put us in our positions, we owe them employment at the minimum.
That's Dr. Jesse Kwabila, who's the Minister of Higher Education in Malawi.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
We begin this afternoon with the lead up to the highly anticipated W20 summit. The University of Johannesburg Centre for the Study of Race, Gender and Class, together with the Human Sciences Research Council, UN Women and the Africa Women Financial Inclusion Initiative, is currently hosting the W20 Gauteng Outreach Dialogue in South Africa. Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Simosa has more.
The 76th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China was marked with a blend of reflection, celebration, and forward-looking commitments. Speaking to the audience in Johannesburg, Chinese Consul General Ben Qingqiang used the occasion to highlight China's journey of transformation from a nation finding its footing in 1949 to becoming prosperous and now emerging as a global power of influence. His message underscored not only China's resilience under the leadership of the Communist Party, but also its enduring ties with partners across the global south, particularly South Africa.
The past 76 years have witnessed a journey of tenacious and persistent endeavors of Chinese people, led by the Communist Party of China, as well as the historic lives of the Chinese nation, from finding their feet to becoming prosperous, and then to constantly getting stronger.
He highlighted global tensions and challenges from hegemonism to geopolitical conflicts that are making the world unsafe.
We are living in a world where transformation unseen in a century is accelerating. Hegemonism, unilateralism, and protectionism are getting more and more rampant. Geopolitical conflicts occur frequently with no sign of end. Humanity is facing challenges like never before, and the future of all countries are closely intertwined.
Against the backdrop of growing geopolitical tension, protectionism, and accelerating global change, Penn described China and South Africa's relations as comrades plus brothers, noting their strategic partnership has continued to yield fruits.
China and South Africa have long enjoyed a special bond featuring comrades plus brothers. We are both important members of the global south. Under the leadership of the two heads of state, the all-round strategic cooperative partnership in the new era between China and South Africa has continuously borne new fruits. Under the new circumstances, China-South Africa relationship is of greater significance and embraces broader opportunities and brighter future.
He also noted China's decision to impose zero tariffs to all African countries, a sign of deepening cooperation between China and Africa.
In June this year, President Xi Jinping announced that through the entry into agreements on economic partnership for shared development, China would grant the zero tariff treatment for 100% tariff-lines to all 53 African countries having diplomatic relations with China. This is an important step taken by China to deepen cooperation with Africa and to support the continent's industrialization and agricultural modernization.
Gauteng Province MEC for Education, Sports and Culture, Matume Chilwane, appreciated China's initiative of zero tariffs to African countries.
We particularly welcome President Xi's groundbreaking announcement on zero tariffs for all African countries. This initiative represents a quantum leap in China-Africa economic relations and demonstrates genuine commitment to supporting Africa's industrialization and agricultural modernization.
MEC for Education, Sports, Arts and Culture for the Free State Province, Ntombizanele Sifuba, hailed South Africa and China's relations that aligns with broader global strategy.
The relationship between South Africa and China is a strong one, reinforced by our shared participation in platforms such as BRICS, the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, the G20, to mention but some. These continental and international ties are complemented by a growing network of sister province relations with China, which aligns with South Africa's broader global strategy.
She quoted China's President Xi Jinping words he uttered in 2018 about China and Africa.
As President Xi said at the 2018 FOCAC summit, China and Africa have always been a community with a shared future. Together, we want to pursue win-win cooperation and common development. These agreements show how that vision is being realized.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
That was Channel Africa reporter Michael Mbewe. We apologize there for that incorrect sound. The story that we brought you now was around the Chinese Consul General Pang Zhengxing, who hailed the 76-year journey of the People's Republic of China as one of resilience and growth, while reaffirming the special bond between China and South Africa. He was speaking at a commemoration in Johannesburg on Monday. He highlighted global challenges from hegemonism to geopolitical conflict, and he also stressed the importance of stronger South-South cooperation. Takes us to exactly 15 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. In just a moment, a look at the future of South Africa and AGOA.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Now, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, is expiring today. This as the Trump administration indicates that it might extend the agreement by another year. However, it seems like South Africa mightn't be excluded from AGOA as the country makes last-minute efforts to remain part of the duty-free trade program. For more on this, we joined this afternoon by Dr. Sande Uhene, an independent consultant on agricultural value chain systems. Doctor, very good afternoon to you. Good to have you with us on Africa in Business.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let's start off with a look at Lesotho. You'll remember that following their visit to Washington, they got an indication that Donald Trump's administration is open to extending AGOA. Will other countries be able to find their way back into AGOA? Your thoughts?
Well, I have a very strong position on AGOA as a consultant in my own rights. In the first place, AGOA is a decision of the Parliament of the Americas for Africans to bring their products to sell on their streets. To the best of my knowledge, there has not been a proper, appropriate response from African countries or from the African Parliament itself to engage with the American Parliament on this AGOA issue. So now, where we are now, the decision is in the hands of America to decide to continue or not to continue, because I don't even know if Africans want it to continue. I know some countries want it, or some individuals want it to continue, but as a person, it's not a good image for Africa for America to be making decisions and then imposing or pushing it on Africa, and then we just swallow it hook, line, and sinker.
What we have seen, what we have seen, Doctor, is a number of countries still advocating for AGOA and wanting to continue benefiting from the duty-free, imports in or exports into America, imports into America, exports from their own countries. So if AGOA is not renewed, which countries would stand to lose out the most?
Well, if we decide to put our house in order, I expect that if America needs our products, they should look for it. We should put our house in order. We should put a list on the products that we are proficient in producing. For example, instead of sending cocoa beans to America, I know they take a lot of it from us. We should produce the chocolate. And you see America running to buy the chocolates from us.
That really
the problem is that we are not organized at home.
And that
we
really
are begging
seems
America. Yeah.
No, I'm agreeing with you, Doctor, because that really seems to be the trajectory that many countries are going to now. It's part of the entire beneficiation, concept and move, making sure that they're not just exporting their raw material, but are now able to export a finished product. But isn't this a little bit too little, too late for the African continent to now starting implementing this?
If African countries do not start it now, they will never start. AGOA was established 25 years ago. I knew about it. I saw it as an opportunity. I was in the presidency working. I saw everything as an opportunity for Africans to sell on the streets of America the way we do in my own country. But we were not able to put our acts together and take over the market on the streets of America. By now, it should be America complaining that we are too many on their streets selling one thing or the other. But we never took advantage of that. So at the end of the day, I have a feeling that if we put our house in order, America will be the one coming to beg for these products from Africa.
And are we doing that as a continent?
Yes, let us, just like Trump says America first, let us say Africa first, and let us stay in-house and fix our products. Let us have a list of commodities which we want to sell to America, and then we fix the final products and make sure that we tell them that it's available here. If they don't come, we consume it ourselves, because we are also hungry and poor. Let us achieve food sovereignty in Africa, especially in agriculture. And then before we think of all this foreign trade, we don't know who is even benefiting. It looks like America is the beneficiary instead of Africa itself. So they put us on the defense as if we are the ones that need the trade. They don't need it. But if we put our house in order, I believe that Americans will be the one who will be begging for the products, because we know what they are taking from here, even if it's mineral resources.
So, Doctor, the AU Kampala Declaration strategy on CAADP 2026 to 2035 is set to kick off in around 3 months' time. How ready is the continent to start without AGOA?
You see, I have been part and parcel of CADEP, the Comprehensive African Cultural Development Program, from the inception. And I know how far we had gone. And I know the obstructions and the distractions that came along the line. I know that, we had the Maputo Declaration in 2003 and the Malabo Declaration in 2014. From 2003 to 2014, there was a lot of progress made in many countries. But from 2014 to 2025, which is for Malabo Declaration, there was a lot of confusion. There was no implementation. In fact, I could say it's a failure, because more people have gone into poverty and hunger over the period, for one reason or the other, even if it's insecurity and other things. But the truth is that more people, millions, have gone into poverty and hunger. Instead of having hunger or having the poverty in Africa, more people went into poverty.
We'll leave it at that for this afternoon, Dr. Sunday Ngubeni. Thank you so much for your insight as well as your perspectives as AGOA comes to an end today. And the question is, will South Africa be a part of that? And what is Africa doing to become more self-sufficient and not so reliant on the United States? We thank you for sharing your insight today. That's Dr. Sunday Ngubeni, an independent consultant on agricultural value chain systems. He takes us to exactly 24 minutes after 4 p.m.
Africa in Business. Africa in Business. delivers key insights and real-time updates on Africa's growing markets with Thami Ngubeni. The African Perspective on Channel Africa.
Channel Africa.
Now, one of the sessions at the Africa Energy Week, which is currently underway in Cape Town, South Africa, was on clean cooking, and that emerges as a social imperative in Africa. The International Energy Agency, IEA, says the adoption of clean cooking fuels would also create up to 460,000 jobs by the year 2040. Now, many of these opportunities could be localized, empowering women as well as young people to build sustainable livelihoods within their very own communities. To help us unpack this further this afternoon, we're joined by Refule Sebutoma, founder of Hakim Energies. A very good afternoon to you, Refule. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Sis Thami. Thank you so much for having me.
This is quite an interesting concept, clean cooking. But what exactly do we mean by it, and how does it compare to perhaps other energy uses? Welcome.
So clean cooking is really the phenomenon of appreciating that in Africa currently, we've got over almost 1 billion people who don't have access to clean cooking. Sis Thami, this means that there are people who still fully dependent on biomass such as wood, cow dung, paraffin, coal to cook every day. And I think it's also important that we understand that lack of access, it then comes with so many ripple effects. I mean, here in South Africa, we still have over 24,000 cases of paraffin poisoning that is reported a year, because majority of informal settlement still rely on paraffin stoves, and toddlers drink paraffin assuming it's something that is safe for consumption. We have what we call firewood rape, when women are targeted when they go into the field to collect wood, right? So these are the many ripple effects that comes as a result of energy poverty. And we see clean cooking really as an alternative that will not just only make sure that women are safe, but really bring economic empowerment, like you have mentioned, creating new skill sets in communities, fostering entrepreneurship, and ultimately really just broadening the scope from an economic perspective. So from our side, we are using liquefied petroleum gas, which is LPG, because I think one message that is coming out very, very hugely at Africa Energy Week is that LPG remains the right fuel for Africa for clean cooking.
And apart from LPG, are there any other energy sources that could also be used for clean cooking that could fall under that category?
Absolutely. So I think electrification is one of the things where people can use electricity. There is other technologies as well, such as biogas, that can be used. But I think the question that I was debating, when I was part of the panel is, for example, let's talk electricity for South Africa, because if we look at our stats, it looks like we are over 80% electrified. But the question is, poor communities, what we call marginalized community, is this sources of energy accessible, available, and affordable? And the question is no. So yes, there might be other alternatives, but especially for the poorest of the poor, are these sources available, accessible, and affordable to them? Because I think, Sister Me, when we talk to just energy transition, we should focus on the justice side of it. As we transition as a continent, we must make sure that we don't leave the marginalized communities behind.
And that is such a valid point, because yes, you can talk about electricity, but especially if you live in South Africa, electricity is becoming increasingly more expensive and unaffordable for so many households. And when you look at the traditional cooking methods and sources of energy like wood, coal, paraffin, dung even, those have been used, for the longest of times. So there are economic considerations as well while one is trying to transition. But which other countries or African regions are actually leading in clean cooking adoption? But let's also add the word affordable there. Which countries are leading in affordable clean energy cooking?
And I think Kenya is here. I had a privilege of sharing the panel with somebody from Kenya. And Kenya is definitely leading, and that's why they have become a very close friend of Hakem Energies, because we also have spoken a lot today about collaboration, understanding what other countries have done well. And perhaps we might not just replicate it, because I think local context becomes imperative, but we can learn. We can see what is it that they've done well. And I think what makes LPG attractive for Africa is that it's a resource that is already available. And I think, Sister Thami, if we look at the dire situation of a lot of poor communities, we also then appreciate that we cannot wait too long. We cannot be looking at 2030, 2040 plans. We are looking at solutions that we can implement today and scale up in the near future.
Refule Sebutoma, thank you so much for your time and your contribution to this really imperative conversation. We thank you for your time, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. That's Refule Sebutoma. She's founder of Hakem Energies. A lot coming out of the Africa Energy Week, looking at clean cooking energies and solutions and the social imperative that Africa needs to focus on. It's gone exactly 4:30 p.m. Central African time. Let's head over now to the markets desk, where Chanduko Ligege is standing by with your latest market indicators.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Thami, and good afternoon. $1 is trading at 17 Rand 28 in South Africa, Botswana 13.21, Namibia 17 Namibian dollars 28, Zambia 23 kwacha 70. In Kenya, the dollar is 128 shilling 36, Ethiopia 144 birr 13, Uganda 3,000 shilling 467, Tanzania 2,000 shilling 441. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 483. Egypt, the dollar is 48 Egyptian pound 01. Tunisia, 2 dinar 90. Algeria, 128 dinar 74. Morocco, the dollar will cost you 8 dirham 99. Angola, the dollar is 912 kwanza. The Congolese franc is trading at 2,693. Looking at commodities, gold is at $3,820, platinum at $1,555 per ounce, the price of Brent crude oil at $67.13 a barrel. That is all from me. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 117144459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And for the business of sport, a very good afternoon to you, Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Thami. A very good afternoon once again from the sports desk. Now, former Indian women's cricketer Julian Goswami has thanked the International Cricket Council, the ICC, for the increase in prize money for the winners of the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup this year. So the ICC earlier this month announced an overall prize pool of $13.88 million for this year's tournament. And notably, this is a 297 increase from the previous edition back in 2022. So this is also more than the prize money of the Men's Cricket World Cup in 2023, which had a total prize pool of $10 million. Now, the winners of the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup will get $4.48 million, while the runner-up will also earn a cool $2.24 million. The semi-finalists will walk away with $1.12 million. Now, every team is also guaranteed an amount of $2.5 million for their participation in this year's competition. So while speaking on the ICC review, Goswami said that she got goosebumps after learning about the prize money by the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup that is currently underway as we speak. She also feels that women's cricket will get a lot of boost from this increase of money from the ICC. Meanwhile, the Proteas women's head coach Mandla Mashimbi has applauded the record prize money increase for the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup. This is what he had to say on behalf of the South African women's cricket team.
It just shows how important the women's game and how big it has grown for ICC to really up the pace in the manner in which they did. And in terms of my players, if you had offered me a job now that will pay me 3 times more than what I'm getting now, I'll probably take it, right? But also understanding what is the most important thing. Money can be made every day, but what you bring on the field, it's just that opportunity that you get.
On to football news now. Tottenham Hotspur have rejected an informal expression of interest from a consortium led by American tech entrepreneur, that is Brooklyn Auric. Now, in the third expression of interest rejected by the club's board since the sudden departure of executive chairman Daniel Levy earlier on this month. In a statement, NX Sports and Development Holdings Ltd, which has almost 78% stake in Tottenham Hotspur, said it wanted to reconfirm that Tottenham Hotspur is not for sale and Auric is not looking to sell its stake in the club. Now, Auric has fueled speculation by posting an image of a dressing room at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on social media, including a timer counting down the 27 days to the 24th of October. So UK takeover as well as merger rules dictate that having had an expression of interest rejected, Auric's consortium must make an offer by that date or announce he is not intending to do so. Now, Auric, a former DJ who also worked in spacecraft reserve for NASA before founding Redacted R&D, which focuses on technology, media, sport as well as entertainment. The family of the UK businessman Joe Lewis own the majority of Auric, while also owning 30% being held by the Levi as well as his family. Back home now, Alan Fritz, the president of Swimming South Africa, says the federation has set a target of 4 medals at the 2028 Los Angeles Olympic Games, but also admitted that he cannot guarantee success if athletes are not properly prepared due to a lack of funding. So he also stressed that medal-winning performances depend on adequate preparation, which also keeps the athletes motivated as well as hungry for success. But at the moment, Swimming South Africa currently struggling financially after the Federation, the Department of Sports and Culture in South Africa sliced half of the grant money that they receive on an annual basis.
It's hard to say that they will not be at the optimum because the athlete will prepare, okay? The preparation will be underfunded, and that's the worry. If the preparation is underfunded, we can't guarantee the outcome. That's the concern we have in sports.
And finally, the Shanghai Masters in Shanghai, China, which this year will run from the 1st until the 12th of October, has announced a prize money total of $9.1 million for the 2025 edition. The singles champion will earn $1.1 million, and the winning doubles team will split $457,000. Meanwhile, the China Open in Beijing, China, which concludes tomorrow, has a total prize money of $4 million. Now, the singles champion will earn $751,000. That's what Carlos Alcaraz earned earlier on today after beating Taylor Fritz in the final, while the women doubles team will then split $247,000 of that China Open prize money. Well, that's a wrap from the sports desk at the SAWA. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. More sporting updates tomorrow morning on Africa Rise and Shine. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you to the markets and sporting desks. It's gone exactly 4:39 Central African time. So let's go back now to the story that we wanted to bring you a bit earlier on regarding the W20. In the lead up to the highly anticipated W20 summit, the University of Johannesburg's Centre for the Study of Race, Gender and Class together with the Human Sciences Research Council, UN Women, and the Africa Women Financial Inclusion Initiative, is currently hosting the W20 Gauteng Outreach Dialogue in South Africa. Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Simosa has more.
The Outreach Dialogue forms part of many sides events leading up to the Y20 Summit to be held in October 2025. The dialogue brings together leading academic institutions, international organizations, and specialized initiatives focused on women economic empowerment across Africa. Tendai Mugabe from the Africa Women Financial Inclusion Initiative highlighted the critical importance of closing the gender gap in financial inclusion across Africa.
So at the Africa Women Financial Inclusion Initiative, we've actually just partnered recently with the Gracia Michel Trust, and we have launched a program in South Africa called the New Faces, New Voices program. This program is going to be very inclusive. We are actually not working just in the big cities, but across all 9 provinces. And when we say 9 provinces, we are doing a balance. We're going to be we're doing financial dialogues with women both in towns as well as rural women. For example, we are going to be in the Eastern Cape in a town called Ugi, and we are also going to be in the Northern Cape, in KwaZulu-Natal, taking our financial programs there, where we're going to be getting the information from all the women on the ground. Because remember, each province is different. Each women in each province face different barriers in terms of getting that financial access or that inclusivity.
She emphasized that women need to be confident, step forward, and actively seek out information.
Okay, so one of the problems that we saw is that a lot of women were talking about access to finance, but are they the finance is there? We've heard about how many funding opportunities are there, but now what comes is that we saw that women are actually not having the barriers that they're facing. They're not confident. They're not coming forward with that confidence to be able to say, let me go and be able to pitch, so to be investor ready. When, let's say, they're going to look for that funding opportunity, they're not understanding some of the financial gaps that are needed for them to then close that gap. So we've then said, let's develop these programs, some of them that will then address some of those issues. We've also talked about advocacy in terms of the policies that are so negative towards women.
Meanwhile, Dr. Okido Wedi from Human Sciences Research Council outlined the major barriers that continues to prevent women across Africa from accessing financial services.
There are a number of barriers affecting women. So outside of a macro level, being policy and systemic level, that's our culture. And also internally, there's lack of confidence in what we can do. However, the IMF and several other organizations have shown that bringing women on board economically actually increases the GDP of a country, and particularly in the Southern African region. Bringing more women on board into the economic ecosystem meaningfully gives them the opportunity, has benefits not only for them individually and for their communities, but for the country.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samos in Johannesburg.
That takes us to exactly 4:43 Central African time. One of the stories that we're bringing for you today is around the construction industry. The Development Board for the Construction Industry, CIDB, in South Africa has blacklisted 40 contractors that since June 2024 for non-performance as well as corruption. A decision that's been welcomed by the country's Public Works and Infrastructure Minister, Dean McPherson. He says that this move sends a very clear signal that the department is serious about acting against non-performance. To understand what led to the blacklisting of these 40 contractors, we joined this afternoon by the CEO of the Construction Industry Development Board, the CIDB, Bongani Dladla. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Dladla. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Good afternoon to you and to all the listeners.
So could you take us through some of the factors that might lead to a contractor being blacklisted and some of the reasons why these 40 that were blacklisted just over a year ago were put on that list?
Yeah, really the main factor that affects this is when we have contractors that have embellished or have claimed to have experience, the financial capital to do projects that they do not have. And they submit fraudulent documents to the CIDB for the purposes of increasing their grade within the grading system, or during the tender process, they've misled clients in terms of the experiences that they have. Because in the construction industry, with the complex nature of the work that we do, you need to show some level of expertise for you to undertake certain projects.
So in the case of these 40 contractors, at what stage did the CIDB realize that actually those documents were fraudulent?
Some of them were realized at the stage of when they were coming to make applications to us. Some of the cases we will pick in the media of projects that are failing, and then we go back to our systems as to saying, in the process of their registration on the award of those projects, were there any irregularities? And in other cases, it would be through our hotline issues where other contractors or the general public are alerting us to these cases. And the fraud that is happening is becoming very highly sophisticated. People are tampering with bank statements, financial statements, appointment letters. So with the ordinary audits, we do pick up many other things, but we've had to establish a specialized enforcement unit that is supplemented by forensic auditors in order to check through the documents that are submitted for registration purposes and in other instances during the tender processes.
And what has been the magnitude of these projects? What type of developments were under construction by these 40?
Some of them were doing small projects under 500,000, grade 1, grade 2 companies, but there were instances where you are looking at projects in the magnitudes of 60 million rand, where you are looking at the grade 7 and the grade 8 that we've had to deal with. And some are still under investigation because we do realize that in order to bring proper accountability to the construction industry, we need to ensure that those contractors are removed, because a lot of projects are failing on site and it is wasting money for the taxpayer and stalling economic growth for the country.
And talking about accountability, what else happens to these contractors over and above the blacklisting? Because fraud is a criminal offence.
Yes, our Act requires us that when we've detected such fraud, we also have to inform the South African Police Services so that they can further investigate in certain instances. And we are doing so. We have a very good partnerships with the SAPS, where we are providing even them with support on how to prosecute some of these cases, how to understand our regulations, and really understand the economic impact, the economic and social impact of some of these transgressions. So these cases also get reported to the SAPS for further investigation, the criminal investigation. And once this company is also blacklisted on our side, it cannot do any work with government, none of the government departments or state-owned entities, because you need to be registered with the CIDB in order to undertake such work.
And what about the monies that have already been spent? What efforts are being made, and how do you project your success rate in recouping those lost funds?
We have not gone that far, so it's the work that will be done with the police as to whether there is any possibility of recoveries in these instances, as you correctly point out, but that would be the domain of asset forfeiture units and other specialized crimes units within the police. Ours primarily is to ensure that credible contractors have the license to operate within the South African construction industry as it comes to engagement with state-owned projects or projects that are run by government departments and state-owned entities.
So the ones that we're talking about now, they were blacklisted in June of 2024, these 40 contractors.
Recently, 2025.
Sorry, 2025, yeah. Yes. So that's 2025, so that's just a few months ago. How long is this blacklisting going to be in effect for?
It's permanent in our register.
So there's no prospect of rehabilitation?
Because it would be rewarding proceeds of a crime. So if you have, because again, it is really to set the culture correct in the construction industry, in a sense that these are fraud cases, and we've taken a stance of zero tolerance towards fraud and corruption, because this goes beyond economic sabotage that happens when questionable contractors are doing projects. It also goes to health and safety, whether you are capable of doing these kinds of work. So as a CIDP, at least at this stage, we are taking a zero-tolerance approach to it.
What one could do, Mr. Dladla, and I'm sure you've seen this, if a company has been blacklisted, you may find individuals who will then just register another company and then bid in the name of a new company. How do you ensure that this doesn't become the case?
This is the major complication and the shortcoming of our regulations that we are reviewing at this stage. It becomes extremely difficult to deem a director delinquent or to blacklist a director because our current regulations as a CITP talks to the register of companies. But the comfort that we have so far is that the damage, as this person comes in, they will come into the CITP as a grade 1. So they are not doing large, complex projects. But there is a bigger picture here where we actually need to be able to deal with both the individuals and the companies that have transgressed our regulations.
All right, Mr. Dladla, we thank you so much for putting us in perspective as far as these 40 contractors that were blacklisted just a few months ago. And as Mr. Dladla says, they're going to be blacklisted permanently, at least the businesses. But there lies a gap within the legislation and what the CIDB can actually do, because individuals can quite easily, either register another company or join another bigger company on a higher grade and still continue to bid for that work. But that's something that he says that they are well aware of. We thank Mr. Bongani Dladla, the CEO of the Construction Industry and Development Board, this afternoon.
From markets to innovation. From markets to innovation. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus, Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Standard Bank, which is Africa's largest bank by assets, has acted as a joint global coordinator on the divestment of Anglo American's residual 19.9% stake in Valterra Platinum, a South African mining company. Now, the placement, which raised over $2.5 billion is the largest equity capital markets transaction to have ever taken place on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. For more on this, we're joined by Richard Stout, who's head of equity capital markets, South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa at Standard Bank Corporate and Investment Banking. A very good afternoon to you, Richard. Great to have you with us. Welcome.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me.
So Standard Bank acted as a joint global coordinator on the divestment of Anglo America's residual 19.9% stake in Valterra Platinum. Could you take us through this process, and if you could also share with us the complexities that were involved?
Yeah, sure. So as you may be aware, last year, Anglo American made a public commitment to fully divest of its stake in Valterra Platinum. At the time, they held about an 80% stake. And so towards the back end of last year, they sold down through similar transactions to the one that we executed recently. They sold down a stake through those processes. And then earlier this year, they demerged a further 51% stake, which essentially entailed them distributing that 51% stake to their shareholders directly. At the end of that process, which concluded in May, they were left with a residual 19.9% stake and had again made it clear to the market that at some point that would be sold. The reason they retained that stake was really just to make sure that they could transfer that stake into motivated shareholders' hands as a means of making sure that some of its UK-based shareholders wouldn't be sizable sellers of the Valterra shares that they received. So the market broadly anticipated that at some point from September onwards, this stake would be sold. I think there was an expectation that it may require two sale processes rather than one. But nonetheless, the market was anticipating some kind of transaction. And so when we started to engage investors ahead of the launch on a kind of confidential basis, it became clear that there was a lot of appetite to participate in the transaction, in part because investors are positioned for the sale, but I think also because there's currently very buoyant sentiment towards platinum in general. Mm-hmm. And Valterra Platinum is seen as, one of the better platinum operators on the JSE. And so the net result of all that was that actually the quantum of demand that was indicated to us and to the rest of the syndicate essentially did create an opportunity for us to contemplate accelerating the full divestment, and rather than necessarily selling a 10% stake and then waiting to come back to market to sell the residual 10% stake, they decided that there was enough demand at the right price, enough quality of demand to essentially look to sell the full 19.9% stake in one go.
And what is it that enabled Standard Bank to be able to execute this role?
Well, I think, to be able to sell a stake of this size, in rand or dollar terms, you obviously have to have an ability to access a broad pool of institutional investing clients, not just in South Africa, but around the world. So into, the UK, into continental Europe, and into the US in particular. Standard Bank has that capability. We do have a global equity distribution platform that facilitated that. So that was certainly important. Should obviously also mention the fact that we weren't the only bank on this transaction. There were, there were other banks, international banks, who were involved, who, I guess, complemented, our ability to distribute into those jurisdictions. But I think the one additional point that is probably worth highlighting is we had quite a good read as to how this transaction would impact Valterra Platinum's weighting in benchmark JSE indices, particularly the JSE All Share Index. And it was that insight into how the indexation weighting would change that helped certain of our investing clients better understand and better quantify how much demand they would have in anticipation of that index reweighting. That essentially meant that we had some very strong indications of demand from certain large domestic institutions who are not passive in nature, but certainly kind of benchmark their funds against that index. And that was an important facilitator of the decision to announce at launch that we were looking to place the entirety of that 19.9% stake.
Richard Stout, we thank you very much for your insight and update this afternoon. Very much appreciated, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Richard Stout. He's Head of Equity Capital Markets, South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa at Standard Bank Corporate and Investment Banking. They, as you know, acted as a joint global coordinator on the divestment of Anglo America's residual 19.9% stake in Valterra Platinum. That takes us to exactly 4:57 Central African time. A very colourful and springy Joël with us this afternoon. Bonjour, très jolie.
Bonjour, merci.
Très jolie Joël.
Merci Thami, toi aussi. Moi je suis en rose, toi tu es en rouge.
Rouge et rose, oui.
Alors bonjour à tous les auditeurs de Channel Africa sur Vue d'Afrique. Tout à l'heure il sera question de Madagascar. Le président Radjo Elina dissout le gouvernement et nous parlerons aussi de la Centrafrique, la convocation du corps électoral pour les élections prévues le 28 décembre. C'est tout à l'heure sur Vue d'Afrique. Merci de rester connecté. Merci Thami.
Merci beaucoup. Coming up in just a moment, Vue d'Afrique. As we say goodbye to you, this has been Africa in Business on Channel Africa. Thank you to our amazing team on the news desk, Onele Nzinzi, economics desk, Chanduko Legege, on sport, Musibudi Makura, production team, our producer Mabubu Loka. Thank you as well to our technical producer and social media team, Talent Butelezi and Estriso Oslope. Thank you so much. I'm Thami Ngubeni. Until we meet again, you have yourself a splendid afternoon further as Vue d'Afrique and the French desk take over.